These pills are poison, Amanda. I'm only trying to help you, Margaret said, holding up my prescription bottle with that condescending smile I'd grown to hate. I stood in my father's kitchen, trying to control my rising anger as my stepmother of 6 months lectured me about the dangers of modern medicine. My name is Amanda Chen, and at 32, I've been managing my hereditary high blood pressure with medication since my early 20s, the same condition that took my mother's life when I was 16. But according to Margaret, my father's new wife, I just needed to try her natural alternatives. Margaret, please give me back my medication, I said firmly, extending my hand. My doctor prescribed those for a reason. She clutched the bottle closer. Your father agrees with me. We've been researching alternative treatments. These herbs I got from my holistic healer are much safer. Of course, Dad agreed with her. Since marrying Margaret, he'd fallen completely under her spell, embracing her every belief about natural healing and alternative medicine. He'd even stopped taking his own heart medication, replacing it with her special herbal blends. My medication isn't up for discussion, I replied, my voice steady despite my rising blood pressure. I need those pills. Margaret's sweet facade cracked slightly. Well, I've already disposed of them, for your own good. These herbs will cleanse your system of those chemicals. I felt the room spin slightly. You did what? Don't be dramatic, Amanda. Here she pushed a bottle of herbal supplements into my hands. Take these instead. 2 capsules morning and night. I gripped the kitchen counter, trying to stay calm. Margaret, tampering with prescribed medication is illegal. You can't just I'm your mother now. She cut in sharply. I know what's best for you. You're not my mother, I snapped, finally losing my composure. And you have no right to make medical decisions for me. I grabbed my purse and stormed out, hearing her call after me. Amanda, don't be difficult. I'm only trying to help. In my car, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called my pharmacy for an emergency refill. But Margaret had thought ahead. I'm sorry, Miss Wilson, the pharmacist said. Your stepmother called earlier today. She said you'd agreed to stop the medication and requested we cancel future refills. I ended the call, feeling my heart race dangerously. I had 3 pills left in my backup supply at home. Enough for tomorrow, but then what? My doctor's office was closed until Monday, 2 days away. That night, I documented everything. I wrote down Margaret's exact words, took photos of the herbal supplements she'd given me, and sent everything to my best friend Kate, who happened to be a nurse. This is serious, Amanda. Kate texted back. She's putting your life at risk. You need to report her. But it wasn't that simple. My father was happier than he'd been since Mom died. Could I really destroy his marriage over this? I decided to try one more rational conversation. The next morning, I went back to their house, hoping to make Margaret understand the severity of the situation. I found her in her healing room, arranging crystals on a shelf. The air was thick with incense, making my head spin. Oh good, you're here, she smiled, as if nothing had happened. I've been cleansing these crystals for your aura. Margaret, we need to talk about my medication, I started. Her face hardened. That subject is closed, Amanda. Trust in nature's healing powers. Your body will thank you. As we argued, I felt the first warning signs. Dizziness, my vision blurring slightly. I'd taken my last backup pill that morning, and my blood pressure was already responding to the missed doses. You don't understand. I tried one last time. This could kill me. Don't be melodramatic. Margaret scoffed. Big Pharma has brainwashed you. Now let me show you these healing crystals I picked out specially for your condition. I left feeling defeated, my head pounding. On my way to work, I called my doctor's emergency line, leaving a detailed message about the situation. I just had to make it through the weekend. Everything would be fine. I was wrong. Monday morning arrived with a vengeance. 3 days without my medication had left me feeling like I was underwater. Every movement felt sluggish, my vision constantly blurring around the edges. I'd barely slept, my heart racing uncomfortably throughout the night. At work, my coworkers noticed something was wrong. Amanda, you don't look well, my supervisor Sarah remarked, frowning as I stumbled slightly while carrying files to my desk. I'm fine, I insisted, even as the room tilted dangerously. Just a little tired. By lunchtime, I could barely focus on my computer screen. The numbers on my financial report swam before my eyes, and the pounding in my head had become unbearable. My smart watch kept alerting me about my elevated heart rate. That's when Margaret showed up at my office, uninvited and unwelcome. I brought you a special tea blend, she announced, placing a thermos on my desk. It will help balance your energies. Your father and I are worried about your negative attitude toward natural healing. I stared at her through my blurred vision. Margaret, I can barely function. Please, just give me back my medication. She clicked her tongue disapprovingly. These are just detox symptoms. Your body is cleansing itself of those harmful chemicals. Here, I brought you some more herbal supplements. As she rattled on about chakras and energy fields, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. The room started spinning violently, and I could hear my pulse thundering in my ears. Amanda? Sarah's voice seemed to come from far away. Amanda, you're bleeding. I reached up and felt something warm trickling from my nose. The last thing I saw was Margaret's face, her smug expression finally cracking as I slumped forward onto my desk. I woke up to the wailing of sirens and Kate's familiar voice arguing with someone. She has severe hypertension. Where are her regular medications? Kate demanded. I realized she must have been called to the scene as one of the responding EMTs. She's taking natural supplements now. I heard Margaret insist. Much healthier than those dangerous prescriptions. Her blood pressure is 210, 140s. Kate's voice was sharp with anger. Did you really throw away her medication? I tried to focus on their faces, but everything was a blur of motion and light. I felt the ambulance moving, heard the beeping of monitors, caught fragments of urgent conversation. Could have killed her. Criminal negligence, needs immediate intervention. In the emergency room, things moved quickly. The doctors administered emergency medication to bring my blood pressure down, while Kate gave them a detailed report of what had happened. We found traces of several concerning substances in her blood work. The ER doctor told Kate, not realizing I was conscious enough to hear. Some of these herbal supplements contain dangerous compounds. We'll need to run more tests, but this could be considered attempted murder. I drifted in and out of consciousness, catching glimpses of my father's worried face, hearing Margaret's protests as security escorted her from the hospital after she tried to bring more of her herbal remedies to my room. When I fully regained consciousness hours later, Kate was sitting beside my bed, still in her EMT uniform. You're lucky I was on call, she said, squeezing my hand. The report's already been filed with the police. Margaret's natural supplements contained more than just herbs. The lab found traces of several controlled substances. I closed my eyes, feeling tears slip down my cheeks. Dad? He's a mess, Kate replied softly. The police found Margaret's diary at your house. She's been systematically replacing everyone's medication with her special blends. Your father's heart medication, your blood pressure pills. She wrote about freeing the family from pharmaceutical slavery or some nonsense. The investigation revealed even more disturbing details. Margaret had a history of similar behavior in her previous marriage. Her ex-husband had died of a heart attack after she'd replaced his heart medication with herbal supplements. She'd managed to avoid charges then, but this time, thanks to Kate's detailed EMT report and my documentation, she wouldn't be so lucky. 6 months after my collapse, I sat in the courtroom watching Margaret plead not guilty to charges of medical tampering and reckless endangerment. She still wore that self-righteous expression, dressed in flowing natural fabrics, crystal pendants hanging around her neck. My father sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, looking aged beyond his years. He'd lost weight since discovering the truth about his wife, and his own health had suffered from months without proper medication. The betrayal had hit him hard, especially after learning about her previous husband's death. The defendant systematically replaced vital medications with dangerous unauthorized substances, the prosecutor stated, holding up evidence bags containing Margaret's special blends. Her actions nearly cost her stepdaughter's life, and put her husband's health at severe risk. Margaret's attorney tried to paint her as a well-meaning holistic healer who simply wanted to help her family. But the evidence was overwhelming. The EMT report, my documentation, her detailed diary, and most damning of all, the lab results showing what was really in those herbal supplements. These weren't just harmless herbs, the toxicologist testified. We found dangerous combinations of unregulated compounds, some of which are known to cause severe cardiovascular reactions. When it was my turn to testify, I described those terrifying days without my medication, the way Margaret had systematically undermined my health, while pretending to care for my well-being. As I spoke, I could feel her eyes boring into me, but I refused to look at her. She told me it was for my own good, I said firmly. That she knew better than my doctors, better than me about my own body. Even when I was clearly becoming ill, she insisted it was just detox symptoms. During the cross-examination, Margaret's lawyer tried to suggest I was exaggerating, that I'd misunderstood her intentions. Isn't it true that my client simply wanted to share her knowledge of natural healing with her new family? I looked directly at Margaret for the first time. Your client wanted control. She didn't care if we lived or died, as long as we followed her rules. The trial lasted 2 weeks. In the end, Margaret was found guilty on all counts. As the judge read out her sentence, Eat years in prison. She finally lost her composure. I was trying to save you, she screamed as officers led her away. You're all slaves to Big Pharma. I was the only one trying to help. After the trial, Dad and I had a long overdue conversation in the hospital cafeteria, where he was recovering from his own health crisis. I should have listened to you, he said, his hands shaking around his coffee cup. When you told me something felt off about her, I was just so lonely after your mom died, and Margaret seemed to have all the answers. I covered his hand with mine. She was manipulative, Dad. She knew exactly what to say and do to gain control. Your mother would be so disappointed in me, he whispered. I let that woman nearly kill our daughter. Mom would want us to heal and move forward, I said firmly, starting with both of us taking our proper medications. Slowly we began rebuilding our relationship and our health. Dad joined a support group for survivors of manipulative relationships, while I started advocating for stricter regulations on unregistered supplements and better protection for prescription medications. Kate, whose detailed EMT report had been crucial to the case, helped me establish a support network for others who'd been victims of medical manipulation. We discovered Margaret's case wasn't unique. There were others out there, self-proclaimed healers who preyed on vulnerable people, replacing vital medications with dangerous alternatives. A year later, I received a letter from Margaret in prison. She still claimed she'd done nothing wrong, that she was being persecuted for spreading the truth about natural healing. I didn't respond, but I kept the letter as a reminder of how close I'd come to becoming another victim of her dangerous delusions. Today my blood pressure is stable, carefully managed with proper medication. Dad's heart condition is under control, and he's slowly learning to trust his doctors again. The healing crystals and herbal supplements that once filled our houses have been replaced with something far more valuable: truth, trust, and respect for real medical science. Sometimes I think about Margaret, sitting in her prison cell, probably still believing she was right. But then I remember the EMT report that exposed her lies, the evidence that showed her true colors, and I'm grateful for the medical professionals who saved my life. Not with crystals or herbs, but with science, skill, and genuine care. That's the real healing power, and no amount of natural alternatives can replace it.